Hello there, thrill seekers. And I wanted to mention that Ziggy now has an Instagram. Yeah, I set up one of those pet Instagrams. So go to Ziggy Zendog, and you can find all kinds of pictures of little Ziggy here. So today's Friday flashback comes from September 11th, 2009 in Durham University in Durham, England, where I had been invited to speak. And somebody complained about these oldies videos being kind of rambling, and I do apologize for that. But that's kind of the nature of what goes on when I give a talk for the public. There's several, usually I just give a kind of brief sort of talk and try as quickly as possible to get into a Q&A situation. And I want to give everybody a chance to ask a question, so there's a lot of questions and it tends to kind of flow in various ways. So this flows in a bunch of directions. I wrote some notes so I could remember all of them. First, it talks about becoming a Buddhist for the reasons of becoming a better person. Then it talks about, and then I end up talking about the relationship between Buddhism and stupidity, which is a subject dear to my heart, because my teacher was called The Way of Stupidity. That was his Buddhist name, a translation of it. Then it gets into the idea of no self and the idea of the self not belonging to you, that your self, and myself too, does not belong to me or to you. So it's an interesting, rambling talk from Durham University in 2009. So let's take a look.
The Dalai Lama apparently said, don't study Buddhism to become a Buddhist, study Buddhism to become a better person. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think so. I personally am not really interested in becoming a Buddhist. I mean, I didn't get into this because I wanted to become a Buddhist.
Yeah.
You know, I had some real burning questions that I wanted to try to find answers for, explanations for. So yeah, I don't even know if I did it to become a better person. I did it because I felt I needed to know something. And if I become a better person for it, that's a little side.
You don't see that as the main aim of Buddhism?
Well, yes, it is.
A kind of person too.
There's one of the things people kind of forget is that there's a strong moral component to Buddhism, and a lot of writers who write about Zen, these days they don't, but the early writers about Zen would tend to leave this out. D.T. Suzuki, I don't think, really talks a whole lot about it, and there are other writers who don't talk about this, who were like sort of famous for writing in English or European languages about Buddhism. And there's a very strong moral component. So that has to do with becoming a better or kinder person. You're supposed to follow 10 precepts, which I can never remember. Don't kill, don't steal, don't lie. So on and so forth. I used to have a card, a wallet that had them all written down.
Bob Dylan type of stuff.
What?
Bob Dylan type of stuff.
Bob Dylan?
Yeah.
Okay. Here's one version of it, but this is actually not the version that we do. But it says, do not harm but cherish all life. Do not take what is given but respect the things of others. I think that's do not steal in the way we do it. Do not engage in sexual promiscuity, but practice purity of mind and self-restraint. Actually, our teacher gives that as don't desire too much. Number 4, don't lie, but speak the truth. Number 5, do not partake of drugs and liquors, didn't even know her, that confuse or weaken the mind. We laughed, right? All right. Liquor, didn't even know her. Do not waste but conserve energy and natural resources. That's a weird version. I don't know where they got that version, but anyway, it's good. But I don't think that's traditional ancient Buddhist version. This is from a Korean Zen temple. Do not harbor enmity against the wrongs of others, but promote peace and justice through non-violent means. Do not cling to things that belong to you, but practice generosity and the joy of sharing. That's 8. And then we have 2 more, which I forget what they are. It shows you what I know. But so this idea of being respectful, of trying to be.
So I think some people try to make Buddhism into an intellectual system.
Yeah.
And understand codependent arising, emptiness, and all these
Yeah,
things.
yeah.
But that's not necessary to be a Buddhist, is it?
No. No, in fact,
That's
I'm
not the main purpose of it.
if I'm like walking proof of that because I don't know those things. You know, every time I have to do a talk, I had to do a talk at a lecture at a retreat in Munich that I just did, and I had to come up with the 12-fold chain of codependent co-origination, and I didn't know it, and I was lucky I brought my laptop along because I had somebody given me this whole all these basic Buddhist stuff in a giant download you could get, so I was able to look it up, and that's the only way I knew it. So yeah, it is made into an intellectual thing, and that's a shame. That's one of the things I've been trying to kind of battle against because I feel like it's too intellectual, and for me the main appeal of Zen was that it was so stupid. You know, the teacher I studied under and took ordination under is named Gudo. Is his Dharma name, his Buddhist name, and Gudo means the way of stupidity. And so he was kind of proud of being stupid. Although he's actually pretty brilliant. He translated the entire Shobo Genzo into English, and Shobo Genzo is this massive Japanese book that nobody understands. And he translated that into English along with a guy named Mike Cross, who works very hard on that. But anyway, the fact that it was stupid appealed to me. The fact that it
Could
was,
mean childlike, right?
Yeah,
Rather
yeah.
than
I mean, I always use stupid. Yeah, I use stupid as a positive, you know, because to me it's always been a positive thing. But I find that sometimes when I'm talking to people, they tend to think I'm putting it down, but I'm not. That's what's good about it. It's just stupid. You're just sitting there, you know. So it's very unintellectual.
This no self, this idea that there isn't a self.
Yeah.
It's kind of really struggle to get my head around that.
No self,
And
yeah.
it makes us anxious thinking about it.
Yeah. Well, that's understandable. The idea of no self is an interesting one. The Dogen, who is the guy who founded the sect that I practice in, expressed it by saying the state of realization doesn't break the individual any more than the reflection of the sky breaks a dewdrop. And that a dewdrop on a blade of grass can reflect the whole sky. So there's not this idea that there is a self which can be destroyed through practice. The idea is that as you continue in this practice, you become more and more aware of what a huge fiction you've created and started to call yourself. That what you call yourself doesn't really belong to you. It's the possession of the whole universe. It's an expression of the whole universe, and it's not a personal thing. But on the other side, it is a personal thing because, like, you know, you can't use my credit card. You know, there is some kind of self there, but it's not quite what you think of it as, or what I think of it as. So
do you think of yourself as, is it like a double think sort of thing, where you see yourself in different ways, you have different, do you know what I mean?
well, it's contradictory in a way, because there is obviously some sort of me here who can talk, you know, and who publishes books and things. But at the same time, I'm aware that that's sort of a provisional thing, that doesn't really have any existence except in relation to other things and other people, which isn't this sort of mystical thing that it might sound like. It's just the way things actually are. So it can be scary, though, this idea of losing self, because like a lot of people use the word ego. A lot of, especially the earliest writings about Buddhism that came out in English, started to use the word ego. And if you look up ego in most dictionaries, one of the synonyms they'll give you is self-esteem. And so a lot of people who started doing the practices, like Buddhism and other similar practices in the early days, would try to destroy their own self-esteem. And there's like a story I always like, well, not like, but there's a story about John Lennon and why he gave up meditation. And he said, it was in this book called Lennon Remembers, and he's talking about how he gave it up because he was just trying to destroy his ego, and he just felt like he had nothing anymore. And he was just like, oh, you know, and he needed to get back to that. And that's because that would be a mistake in practice. He probably didn't have a decent teacher, you know. I mean, he didn't have a teacher at all, really. That's a mistake. You don't want to get rid of self-esteem. You don't want to try to destroy your personality. None of this is necessary. But as you continue the practice, you get a gradual shift in perspective to where you start to go, oh, that was not true. You know? And one of the things that's not true is this idea of this hard individual self that gives rise to, for example, the idea of a soul. You know, in Buddhism there's this idea of no soul, and that's scary, especially if you've grown up as a Christian. I sort of grew up as nominally Christian. I didn't have a strong religious background, but my family was probably some kind of Protestant. You know, we didn't go to church or anything. But anyway, that idea frightened me because I thought, oh, I'm going to lose my soul. But actually, Dogen talks about the soul, you know, which shocked me too. But anyway, it's not that there isn't anything there as an individual. It's just that thing that expresses itself as the individual isn't really a solid thing that could be destroyed. It's just a provisional thing, and at some point it sort of loses cohesion and probably becomes something else. Although I don't want to get into speculation about what happens then, because that's just speculation.
This is just really saying the idea of impermanence.
Well, yeah, it's
not a
impermanent.
thing. You know, modern physics will say not a permanent thing anyway.
Yeah.
So we're not permanent. And maybe trying to forget ourselves rather than lose ourselves is a better idea. Because we're obsessed with ourselves. We're obsessed with who we think we are.
Sure.
So you pay attention to other people and become aware of what's going on around you, then you lose this sense of hard self. Really.
It's attack to ego, isn't it? Society, they try to manipulate or attack you through ego
Oh yeah.
of the self. So
Oh,
if
sure.
you let go of the self, then they can't attack you.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's
so
a
the
problem.
gift just collapses because you think, well, if I do this, it'll get to this person and I'll have him down. But if you don't have got that ego or that idea of self, then you just become like a mushy stuff that they can't sort of.
Yeah, not necessarily
Why do you
mushy,
think they're trying to
but
attack you? That's an unusual.
well, no, you know, advertising and things like that. You know, there's always things that people are trying to get you by kind of grasping onto your sense of self.
Your fears and
Yeah, your fears or your needs or your
Desires.
wants. And doing this practice, you kind of lose that. But it's not a bad thing to lose. It's actually useful to lose that. But you don't lose it completely. That's the other thing. That people have this idea that there'll be one of the fantasies about enlightenment is that there'll come a time. A lot of people who get into the practice imagine that there's going to come a time someday when it just goes bing, and everything becomes great from then on, and you don't have to worry about anything. But it doesn't really work like that. There's always something there, and you can always access it when you need to, or you can ignore it when you need to, which is good. And it doesn't always work perfectly.
So